I thought it would be good to make a video demonstrating some of the things that you saw me do in class today. This way you can use this video as a reference should you decide to use these techniques after the lecture or even after the class is over with completely. So I'm picking up here at the point where I've just run the R script and I've gotten all my Twitter data gathered and collected here. It's going to be parked in the same subdirectory as the Twitter script. And over here, I've already logged into my Google Drive, and I'm ready to create a sheet and get the data into a new Google Sheet. So let's start by creating a blank Google Sheet. There we go. And I can give it a quick title here. Let's see. Something like that. And I want to get the tweet data that I've just collected into this sheet. So there are a couple of ways you could do it. You could open it in Excel and then copy and paste it. But there's a nice import function in Google Sheets that works pretty well. So let's use that. There's File and Import right here. And then I need to tell it I want to upload the file from my computer and then navigate to wherever that file is. I've already been here before, so it came here by default. This is the desktop where my copy of R is installed. It's in an R subdirectory, and then the script itself is in the Retweet subdirectory within the R folder. So the file I'm looking for is the My Tweets Mini file, CSV file right here. And I'm going to click that and choose Open. And now I need to tell Google Sheets a few things about how to import this data. The first thing I wanted to do is instead of creating a brand new spreadsheet, I really wanted to put the data on this tab that I have open already here. So I'm going to choose Replace Current Sheet. That's a worksheet instead of the entire Google Sheets spreadsheet file. So we'll do that. And it would probably get the delimiter right, but let's specify it all the same just to make sure. This is a comma delimited file, so I'm going to choose comma as the separator. And go ahead and leave this Convert Text to Numbers, Dates, and Formulas box checked. And then just choose Import Data. And depending on the size of the file and the speed of your internet connection, this might take varying amounts of time. In this case, it happened pretty fast. So there we go. So there's the data imported from the CSV file that we created in R. One thing you might want to do, you could go ahead and start analyzing the data now, but it might kind of bother you that, for example, this row is so much wider than this row. There's a nice easy way to get all of these rows into a uniform size, and that's to click on the row number for the first row here. And then so when I do that, of course, you can see that it highlights the entire row all the way across the sheet. And then I'm just going to hold down the Control key and the Shift key. On a Mac, it would be the Command and then Shift key. And then press the down arrow button. And what that's going to do is that's going to highlight all of the rows from the first row down to the last one, which is, in this case, is 11,130. There are 11,129 tweets that we've captured here. It's +1 for the column headings at the top. And then just pick any of the rows over here and right-click with the mouse to bring up this menu here, and then choose Resize Rows. And the default 21 pixels will work just fine. So check that and click OK, and all of the rows will automatically resize to the same height, which makes it look a little bit better. Another thing you probably want to do is fix the spreadsheet so that when you scroll down, these column headings stay in view. See, it's kind of unhandy to start scrolling down and then you get down here and you go, oh, was this the retweet column or was this the favorite column? So if you can keep those in view, that's even better. So the way to do that is to put your cursor in cell A2 right here, and then choose View and Freeze, and tell it to freeze one row. There we go. So now when I scroll down, these column headers stay in view. And another thing you might want to do is widen the columns. The only column you don't want to widen automatically would be this text column. I'll show you what happens if you do that. If I just let Google Sheets widen it, you see it gets really out of hand because there's a lot of content in that column, and it just runs off the edge of the screen. So instead of doing that, what you might do is do a little bit more of a controlled widen on this column. I've clicked on the top of it right here to highlight the whole thing. Right click and choose Resize column, and just put some reasonable value in here. I found that 250 pixels works pretty well, and then click OK. And that gives you enough of the first part of the tweet to see what's going on, but it doesn't take over the whole screen. The rest of these columns you can actually widen automatically. I've highlighted the first two here, and if I double click on the border between them, right there, notice how what I'm doing is I'm floating my cursor over that border between the two. See, it changes shape from a hand to like a double-ended arrow. When it turns to a double-ended arrow, you can double click, and the columns will resize automatically. And I can do the same thing with all the columns after the text column, columns D through, what is this, L. So I highlighted all those, pick a column boundary, position my cursor so that it changes to that double-ended arrow, and double click, like that. And everything resizes automatically. So now we've got the top row frozen as we scroll up and down, and we've got all the columns widened to show the content of what's in them, with the exception of the text column, which we just widened to a reasonable amount. So now we're ready to do some basic analysis on the data. One easy and interesting analysis to do is to find out which of the tweets was the most retweeted or the most liked of the tweets that we've collected. And that's easy to do with Google Sheets' sort feature. The first thing you need to do is highlight all the data, which you can do easily by clicking this blank rectangle above the 1 for column 1, and to the left of the A for column A. If you click on that, it highlights the entire spreadsheet, and then choose Data and Sort Range, and go down to this Advanced Range Sorting Options feature right here. If you click on that, this little menu is going to open up. Check this box to indicate that there's a header row at the top of the column, at the top of the data. Notice if you don't check that, you just have the column names here. But if you do check that, you get the actual column, the text at the top of each column, so you can see what's in there. And we're going to sort by the, let's do the retweet count column here, so we can see which tweets were sent on by the greatest number of users. And let's choose a Z to A sort. If the default there, the A to Z, will put the smallest values at the top, and the biggest values, which is the ones we're interested in this case, at the bottom. It'd be better to have the big values at the top so we don't have to scroll down to look at them. So I'll choose Z to A. We could add another sort column here. In fact, let's give it a try just for fun. Let's suppose I want to sort first by the retweet count column and then sort by the quote count column, and also Z to A. So what this is going to do is, if there happens to be a tie in the number of retweets for a given quote, it's going to order them according to the number of, I'm sorry, I meant to say, not choose quote count, I meant to choose favorite count. There it is, that one. Yeah. So it's going to, if there happens to be a tie between two tweets in the number of retweets that those tweets got, it's going to order them according to the number of favorites that each one got. So it's kind of like a tiebreaker sort. So just to show you how to do that, if you want to just do one sort on one criteria, that's perfectly fine. But anyway, let's check sort and see what we get here. Here we go. So no big surprise here. The top tweet, the one that is retweeted the most, 88,598 tweets, originated at, let's see, 2,300 hours on the 27th. That was yesterday. So this was, let's see, that's shortly before midnight on the night that the Oscars happened. And it's from somebody named Supreme Dreams. How many followers does this person have? Let's see, that's a pretty chunky follower count there. We'll have to find out who this is. But here's what we're really interested in, the text, of course. Chris Rock, after being slapped at the Oscars, and there's a link here that is probably some kind of a picture or a video we could either follow that directly, or we could click on the, oops, what am I doing here? Seems to have picked it up. There we go. But anyway, we can go look at the actual tweet right here on Twitter. Yeah, so, oh, it's actual footage of Chris Rock watching the footage of him getting slapped. There we go. No wonder everybody was so interested in that. I don't know who Mark Phillips is here. A YouTuber, okay, with a whole bunch of followers. So, yeah. And so anyway, so that's the most retweeted tweet. And obviously you can, this makes it kind of easy to scroll through the tweets and see kind of what people were talking about. The second most one, no big surprise here, has to do with BTS. Every time BTS shows up on TV, their worldwide fans come out of the woodwork on Twitter. But this is a way to get an idea of kind of what the buzz is, or what the most common themes are in whatever tweets you captured. All right, so that's how to use the sort. We'll look at some other things here shortly. You can also get some insights out of this data by using the filter tool in Google Sheets. Let's do a simple application first. Let's filter for all the tweets that mention, say, slap. All right, because that seems to be the theme of the night, right? We're going to filter on this text column right here. And we're going to basically hide all the tweets except those that have the word slap, or some version of slaps in them, like slapped or slaps, some present or past tense slapping, perhaps, anything like that. Slap's a good choice because really there would be no other reason to use the word slap in the context of last night's Oscars, unless you're talking about the incident in which Will Smith slapped Chris Rock live on camera. To use this feature, just choose data and create a filter right there. Okay. Now, when I do that, notice how it is Google Sheets has stuck this upside down orange triangle at the top of each column. And if you click on that, you can open up a sort menu for that particular column. So since we're interested in sorting by the text column, we can click on the little upside down triangle at the top of the text column, and we got a whole lot of options here. One of which is filter by condition. That's the one we want to pick for this particular exercise. And of the available conditions, I can choose text contains. So that means the text that I'm going to ask it to search for here, which is slap, it's going to pull up tweets that have the word slap anywhere in the tweet, beginning, the end, somewhere in between, and also any sort of variation of slap, as I mentioned earlier, like slaps or slapping or slapped or anything like that. Let's see, that's about it. So let's click OK. Okay, and so what you have now, it actually doesn't look that different, but a couple of things have changed. First of all, this icon here has changed from the little upside down triangle to that sort of funnel. That indicates that there's a filter on that particular column. And notice that the counts here are no longer, they're still in order, but they're not sequential. We go from row 1 to row 2, and then we skip to row 56. Why? Because rows 3 through 55 contain tweets that did not mention the word slap in the text. So it's showing us only the tweets that have the word slap in them. And so what you can do now that you've sort of narrowed things down to tweets that mention slap is you can sort of scroll through here and have a look at the text of the tweets that mention the word slap. So that's how you can use the filter for a quick look at some particular aspect of the tweets in that way. Now, the tweets that we filtered out haven't disappeared. They're all still here. They're just being hidden. To find them again, to get them back, you can click on the little icon here and go with, let's see, do we just choose all? Well, the easiest way to do it is to choose data again and remove filter, just like that. And that takes off the filter and see all the records come back. All right, now let's use that same filter tool in a little more complicated way. Let's say we want to find out um, uh, whether tweets mention Chris Rock more, whether they mention Will Smith more, or whether they mention the two of them together most often, or neither of them most often. Let's see that. To do that, we're going to need two new columns, one indicating whether Will Smith is mentioned in the text, and a second one indicating whether Chris Rock is mentioned in the text. So let's add two new columns. To do that, let's see, I'm going to add them. What would be a good place? I think I'm going to add them right after this source variable right here. So I'm just going to highlight these two columns, right-click, and choose Insert Two Columns to the left of the columns that I highlighted. See, so that gives me two nice new columns here. And let's set some default values for this. Let's call this the Smith column, and this the Rock column for Will Smith and Chris Rock. And let's say, let's set the default values to this, Smith, not mentioned. Okay, and then over here, the default is going to be Rock not mentioned. Let me widen these a little bit so we can get a better idea what's going on. And then I'm going to, I've called this a default value because I'm going to set every row. I'm going to assume at first that every row contains a tweet that did not mention Smith and did not mention Chris Rock. So what I did there was I just double-clicked on this little blue square in the lower right corner of the first two that I highlighted. Let me just do it again here real quick. Okay, so you got these two highlighted. You've got this little blue square here. If you double-click on it, it copies those values all the way down to the end of the data set. See that? Okay. Go back up. Here we go. Now I'm going to use the filter tool to systematically change Smith not mentioned to Smith mentioned if we're talking about a tweet that did in fact mention Will Smith. So a little bit of a repeat here. We're going to choose data and create a filter again, and choose that little upside down triangle at the top of text, and let's filter by condition again, and let's choose text contains, and let's say let's try Smith. Okay, and choose OK. Okay, so assuming there are no other Smiths, that's a big assumption associated with the Oscars. These should all be, or at least mostly be, tweets that mention Will Smith. Yeah, there we go. So let's assume that's the case. And then, so for all of these now, we want to change Smith not mentioned to Smith mentioned. So let's just change the first one like this. And then sometimes the click works here. That doesn't in this case. Let's do a copy. So I'm going to copy that value all the way down the row. We can either highlight them with the mouse, or you can do the Shift Command down arrow thing. That's going to highlight all of these. And then right-click and choose Paste, like that. Okay, so it's changed all of those Smith not mentioned values to Smith mentioned. Now let's go back and let's alter the filter to look for a text that contains rock. I don't know if this will work. Let's try this. Let's try just Chris Rock in quotes and see what happens. Live TV. Oh, I didn't find any of that at all. So looks like we only have the option of just specifying rock. Excel has a slightly more sophisticated feature where you could search for Rock and Chris in the same one, but we'll just do this right now. All right, so let's click OK. And now we get all of the, see all the, we're picking up again both Smith mentioned and Smith not mentioned tweets because we took that filter off. Now if a tweet is showing, it's because it's a tweet that mentions the word rock, which is almost certainly a reference to Chris Rock. So let's change all of the rock not mentions to rock mentioned. And same process as before. Copy, highlight all the ones below it, and paste. Okay. And now when I take the filter off, let's see, data, remove filter. Now I have two columns indicating, this one indicating whether or not the tweet mentioned Smith, and this one indicating whether or not the tweet mentioned rock. So now I can use yet another tool that Google Sheets makes available, the pivot table tool, to find out how many tweets mention both of them, how many mention neither of them, and how many mention exclusively one or the other. Let me show you that one. So that lives under the Insert menu right here, and choose Pivot Table. And go ahead and let it open a new sheet here. So we'll have a separate tab down here for the table. There we go. And let's see, it really doesn't matter in this case which one we put in the rows. Let's add a row for each type of Smith mentioned. Okay, so we get a row for the tweets that mention Smith and a row for the tweets that don't mention Smith. And now let's add a column and do the same for rock. So we're going to have a column now for rock mentioned or rock not mentioned. Okay? And we have still kind of blanks here in the cells that are intersections of these things. So we need to put something in there that will give us a count of how many tweets are here, how many are here, how many are here, and how many are here. The trick here is to pick a field that is not numeric, because if you stick a numeric number in there, it's going to, by default, add them all up. So let's pick something that's text and put that in there. So that's the values option here, by the way, in the table. And let's add one of the variables that is just we can actually just use the text of the tweets themselves. And since it can't add the text, it's going to just count how many entries there are. And so now you get to see how much we have of each. So there are 1,267 tweets in the data set that mention both Smith and also mention rock. See how that kind of sits at the intersection of those two? There are 178 that mention Chris Rock without mentioning Smith. And there are 881 that mention Will Smith without mentioning Chris Rock. And then there are 8,803 that mention neither Chris Rock nor Will Smith, all about something else, presumably. And if you want to see the tweets that match any of these criteria, all you have to do is double click on the total. So let's look at the tweets that mention both rock. Let's see, that mention both of them, the 1,267 tweets that mention both. If I double click, I get yet another tab that shows, let's get rid of that, that shows just the tweets that were in that cell of the pivot table. And I can do all the same things here that I could do with the earlier sheets that you've seen. For example, if I want to find out what's the most retweeted tweet that mentions both Will Smith and Chris Rock, I can just go use my data menu and let's see, not create a filter, data value, sort range. Oh yeah, sort range. Sorry. So do the advanced sorting here, and let's do a reverse sort on the retweet count. Oh, just for fun, let's switch this to favorite count and click sort. And so, yeah, so the most favorited tweet that mentioned both of them is this one. Let's see what the text says. Everyone at the Oscars when Will Smith assaulted Chris Rock on national television. So this looks like, I think this was also the most retweeted tweet in the full data set, but yeah, here it is. Oh, yeah. So this is, I don't know if this is real or not, if this is everybody's actual reactions, but anyway. So yeah, kind of a commentary on the shock that was in the audience. Yeah, so there we go. So that's how to use the pivot table tool and the filter tool kind of in conjunction to do a little bit more in-depth analysis on a given tweet. You can also use, let's see, you could use the data here to do another analysis that you saw me do. We could capture, see, this is the one that mentions both of them. So these tweets are almost certainly about both the Will Smith, the incident involving both Smith and Rock, the slapping and so forth. So what we could do is we could grab the retweet count from these data. You just do that real quick. Just gonna again Control Shift down arrow. I've now highlighted all the retweet counts. Copy that. Put that in a new sheet. There we go. And let's see, these are the number of retweets for each of the Smith Rock tweets. And then go back and get the same information for tweets that don't mention either one of them. These right here. This is Rock not mentioned, Smith not mentioned, right? So I double click there and grab the retweet count data from there. I just copied that, by the way. I did it with the keyboard, not the mouse. You could also do it this way. And let's see, where's that? Hazard of getting all sorts of sheets open. There we go. I'm going to paste that now. And these are the these are all the tweets that don't mention either Chris Rock or Will Smith. And so we can compare now to see kind of how many each one got, or on average at least. We could do we'll call this the average for the slap tweets, on the assumption that if a tweet mentions both Smith and Rock, it's about the slap. Average for other tweets. And all I have to do is use the average function, equal average, and then a parenthesis. And if I start here at the first value in the retweets for the Smith Rock tweets column, highlight those, again, Shift Control down arrow, or Command Shift down arrow. You see how the formula has supplied the cell ranges for that. And if I just hit Enter, that's the average number of retweets that these Smith and Rock tweets got. So pretty big average. So let's see what the average is for the other tweets. Equal average, and then start here. Control Shift down arrow, and then Enter. Scroll back up. So yeah, on average, tweets that mentioned the slap got retweeted 484 times. All the other tweets that didn't mention the slap got retweeted about almost 200 times less on average. We can even do something called a Ttest to see if these two averages are different enough to suggest that the difference is not just random, that it's systematic. And the easiest way to do that is to, let's see, This gives us the probability that a difference this big could show up purely by chance. It's the Ttest function, like that. Start with a parenthesis, and then define the first range of numbers that we want the Ttest to consider. That's that range, a comma, and then define the second range that we want the Ttest to consider. That would be the average retweets here, and then another comma. This value is always going to be 2, typically. I don't really have time to get into the difference between a one and two-tailed test here, but a two-tailed test, basically we're telling Google Sheets to give us the probability that the difference could go either way. The one could be greater than the other, or one could be less than the other. And then as far as type, this is another value. You're typically going to want to use 3. There are different kinds of T-tests. The third kind is the one that you want to use most often. And then finally a parenthesis, and hit enter and scroll back up. So there's about a 2% chance that you could get a difference between these two averages that is this large, given how many different cases we're considering here. And in social science, the typical cutoff here is about 0.05 or 5% chance. If you have a probability less than 0.05, that means that the difference that you're testing for probably did not show up at random. So if it didn't show up at random, it must have been for some kind of a reason. And here, the most likely reason is that all these tweets mention the slap, and all these tweets don't mention the slap. So it really looks like the slap, the idea of mentioning the slap, drove drove engagement more so than did tweets about the Oscars that didn't involve the slap. So as a journalist, what you could write about this is that tweets about the Oscars tended to focus on, or I guess you have to be a little bit careful here. You could say something along the lines of mentioning the slap tended to give tweets about the Oscars more traction. There we go, something like that. All right, so that's just a quick look at some of the procedures, some basic ones, some advanced ones that you saw during class today. I hope this helps you going forward in actually using these tools in your own reporting, in your own work.